So we're going to jump into the Disney realm. And it was announced that Kathleen Kennedy is going to be leaving Lucasfilm. My question to both of you guys, Bill, I'm going to kick it to you first since you're the guest.
Thank you.
We'll get the thoughts. I know D's got some thoughts. so we'll kick it to you first. Is it too late for her to be gone? Is the damage already done to the Star Wars universe with her departure?
It's never too late, man. I think it's there's a song that said it was too late to apologize by One Republic. I just want to make the whitest reference of all time. But I don't think it is, man. I don't think Star Wars is ruined. I mean, if you look at the end of year that Disney put out for the number of minutes their original content was watched, Star Wars, it was The Acolyte, and all we heard about how much of a disaster it was. It was the most watched original film, series on Disney Plus. Skeleton Crew not far behind it. Billions of minutes of that show watched, a show that we were all told so bad, no one liked it, no one watched it. But people came and they came and they watched it, and I think a new coat of paint, a new person in charge will do wonders. I mean, Marvel, we thought, it was, oh man, last 2 years, oh, it's done, man. It's done. And then all of a sudden, what's the show everyone in the world is excited for? Daredevil. Yeah. And they've changed, Marvel has changed what they were going to do. Instead of every month a new Marvel property, they've scaled it back. And, post Captain America, I think we're going to see, I hope we see a change in that. I think the same could be said about Star Wars. I think the only thing holding Star Wars back is Star Wars fans in a lot of ways, because they hate everything. And I am a Star Wars fan. Return of the Jedi was the first non-animated movie I ever saw. And I was like a wee lad in swaddling clothes in my father's lap watching it. And I was like, this is the greatest thing ever. And I've loved it ever since. Now, did I love the prequels? No. But I feel it's the new films and the new series aren't perfect by any means, but there's still a lot of good stuff in there. And I think putting the right people in the right creative and telling stories and being bold instead of trying to make everyone happy, I think trying to tell a good story that will just be good, I think is what they should do. I think they're too worried about everyone. They're so afraid to make a mistake that they make all the mistakes. I think when they made The Mandalorian season 1, I think I don't know about you guys, but I loved it. And season 2, I love that too. But it didn't feel like they had this fear. They didn't feel like they felt like we're just going to make this show. But when we got to season 3, Book of Boba Fett and other stuff, we got to make sure. We got to put Mando in. It felt very panicky, very reactionary. And I want someone who go in there who loves Star Wars, or is at least has the faith that they can tell good stories.
You bring up some good points. And before we get to D, I'll jump in there real quick. So I think for what you're saying, I agree with. There's a little bit of good in this Disney run. The problem I had with it is that it wasn't consistent.
No.
You had good stories like Mandalorian season 1, season 2, and then they trailed off season 3. It's just they got to a point to where it was too many changes, and again, they were trying to cater to everybody. So by the time you get to Acolyte was for me it was a hit and miss show.
It was.
You had some good stuff in there, but overall, and then you get to this point where you start playing with the lore, and that's where you really the Star Wars fans, if you start messing with the lore a little bit, that's kind of like a no-go. And I get they're trying to tell new stories, but you just can't mess up the lore. Like for me, if that were Marvel and Marvel does go off script from comics from time to time, but they kind of keep it consistent to where it makes sense, the changes that they do make.
And Marvel has changed so many storylines that within their own world. They've changed so many. Yeah,
exactly. But it was to the point to where it still made sense, and it was still sort of in the realm of the comic books. Star Wars did not do that at all. They were trying to go off and tell their own stories. And I think that's where they started messing up. And I think the blame went squarely to Kathleen Kennedy because you don't have that voice that says, I'm here for the fans. She wasn't here for the fans, for the Star Wars fans. She was here to tell whatever stories that made the most sense to her. And I think when you get into that pocket, it was a recipe for a disaster. If you can bring somebody in that will say to the fans, hey, I understand your pain. Give me a little bit, we can fix it. I think what they had with the Mandalorian, if they go back to that kind of formula that they were doing on season 1, you bring a lot of fans back into it. But it's gonna be a lot of you're gonna have to prove a lot because this franchise is fractured. That is for sure. So go ahead.
Yeah, I do agree with that. I think the films were. I think actually the films are ones that did the most damage. Because I really like The Force Awakens, but it's the main three. I know people like. I loved Rogue One. I think Solo's on the second viewing is fun, but I think like because it was like Force Awakens. I remember so many people saw it, and it's just like, oh man, there was two reactions. It was, oh, this is just A New Hope again, or oh man, that felt good. I think we're back. I think we're back. This is good. And then The Last Jedi came out, and that was either you loved it or it ruined your childhood forever.
Yeah.
And then Rise of Skywalker was like, oh shit, we can't make Last Jedi again, so let's try and make everyone happy by bringing the Emperor back in. And then just everyone was just, it was like that Family Guy thing when they're talking about Blair Witch is like, nothing's happening. Everyone in the theater is really pissed, and that's what it was, you know. And I think it was that reaction. They were more afraid, and I also think putting 3 separate directors in it to direct was, I think, a little silly. I think they should have had a singular vision, and they didn't. And I think on TV with Filoni, at least, they will have more of a singular vision that makes sense. They don't have a Kevin Feige who's like in the weeds. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I agree with that. Frank D, what you got?
Well, I'm going to disagree. I'm going to disagree with Bill on a lot of points.
That's all good.
So nobody watched The Acolyte. It's been proven in the numbers that have come out from Disney that they tried to hide. The only time people watched the show was episodes 1, episodes 2. Episode 3 fell off until, I believe, the finale. So you had a big budget show that no one watched. Really, it did not chart. And at the end of the day, people wonder, well, why did Lucasfilm cancel? Why did they do it? Lucasfilm didn't cancel anything. It was Bob Iger that made the decision to cancel The Acolyte. And it all came down to big budget, no viewership. It didn't make fiscal sense to continue this show. That's what happened. Now we move on to the Skeleton Crew, which I've not watched the Skeleton Crew, but I've heard nothing but good things about it.
Yeah, it's really good.
Haven't watched it, and it's because at this point you have the Star Wars apathy, is what you have. You have people that just, they're not going to watch it, they're not going to go with it. And I think that, I mean, you know, we can sit up here and debate movies all day long. The biggest destructive force to Star Wars has been Kathleen Kennedy. Because Kathleen Kennedy, at the end of the day, the buck stops with her. Just like the buck stopped with Vince McMahon in the WWE for many, many years. The buck stops with Kathleen Kennedy. Kathleen Kennedy made it, the force was female. That's what she said. And she said, we're going to change all this stuff. Basically, we're going to make this a girl brand. You cannot make Star Wars into a girl brand. And then I hear all the bullshit about, well, you know, everybody just has a problem with it being a woman. My guy, we had Princess Leia. We had Padme. We had all these different people. So I'm not exactly sure why people thought that all of a sudden that we wouldn't be accepting to that. We have Ahsoka Tano. I mean, look at Ahsoka. When Ahsoka Tano first debuted in the Clone Wars, everybody hated that character. But it grew over time to what it was because she's the apprentice of Anakin Skywalker. So the Clone Wars kind of filled that gap in, you know, up until Revenge of the Sith. Did all of that. So when you look at Disney projects since they acquired Lucasfilm, all I can say is that you've gotten more content. You've gotten The Mandalorian season 1, season 2. Excellent. I mean, the biggest episode they ever did in the history of Disney Star Wars was the return of Luke Skywalker. Episode 16, season 2. That was the best thing they ever did. What's another one they did? Kenobi. I mean, you talk about bait and switch. And I was just watching Kenobi earlier today. And I'm like, this would have been a good show if it had not been Obi-Wan Kenobi. If it was not named Obi-Wan Kenobi, this would have been great. I don't have an issue necessarily with Reva, the character. I think it's a great story. She's a youngling that was, Anakin went after her in the Jedi Temple. Okay, cool. You could have had a show called The Inquisitorius, and it could have just been Darth Vader and the Inquisitors. That would have been fine. But the mere fact that you have a show called Obi-Wan Kenobi, and it's not about Kenobi, that's the problem. And I think that's where a lot of the issues went. So when you brought up The Last Jedi, well, remember, The Force Awakens, that's a good movie. Great movie. But some stuff happened there with The Last Jedi when Rian Johnson decided to come in. He wanted to make a divisive film. That's where the downfall really started. It was at The Last Jedi. Then Rise of Skywalker, that was J.J. Abrams having to come back and try to kind of recoup the entire situation. Like, they went ahead and screwed everything up. He was very pissed. I don't know if you guys know the story of this or not, but JJ was very pissed when he saw The Last Jedi when they destroyed Kylo Ren's mask. Because, why would you do that? Because of all the time they spent trying to find the mask. And then they just destroyed it in The Last Jedi, and they had to bring it back in Rise of Skywalker. And I think it's just too much. I don't know, man. It's like, and I told you several times, about the ongoings of Lucasfilm and how Kathleen should have been done last year. She was supposed to be out of there, and she didn't go. So I think I'm going to say the damage has been done with Star Wars, but maybe there's a new hope somewhere. Maybe there's a new hope in whoever's going to take over that position. Is it Filoni? I don't know. Filoni's kind of hit and miss. I think Filoni is excellent at animation. Live action, he's kind of hit and miss. Could it be Jon Favreau? Only if Favreau wants to do it. Could it be Tony Gilroy? Not necessarily. Tony Gilroy's already said that after Andor season 2, he's done with Star Wars. So I don't know where we go at this point. But all I know is get her ass out. And then maybe we can kind of recoup some of this. You are muted there, my guy.
Sorry. So I was going to bring this up too. What would and I'll kick this to you, D. What would make you happy as a Star Wars fan? Who could they bring in and put in that spot that would build that relationship back with the Star Wars fan base? Because I have a name in mind, but who would it be for you?
I mean, it would have to be the guy that has had the most success over there with anything they've done, and that's Jon Favreau, because of just what he's done with The Mandalorian. But the time's going to tell when The Mandalorian Grogu comes out, if that's going to be successful. That's going to be their next test. And I think it's kind of funny, real quick, that Kathleen is exiting. Okay, mind you, what have we heard the last couple of years? That they were going to do the Rey movie, that they're going to do New Jedi Order and all that. Remember, all that stuff's going to happen. They're going to do the Mango movie. She's exiting before all these failures happen, is what I think is going down. She doesn't want the stain on her. I honestly think this, not trying to be a negative Nelly here, but I honestly think that I don't think The Mandalorian Grogu is going to be a successful movie. I really don't think so. I think the cuteness of Grogu is gone. They've waited too long to do anything with it. I think that it's gone. And I can tell you right now, because of Ollie's, you look at all the toys at Ollie's, nothing but Grogu. Nothing but all these Star Wars toys. So that kind of tells me right there that Grogu is not popular. All the kids that like The Mandalorian and Grogu, they kind of grew up. They're kind of out of it now.
Yeah.
So
you're right about that.
But it would be Favreau.
Bill, who would you put in there?
I mean, my pick is Filoni. I've heard that I don't think Favreau wants to do it. But I think Filoni's the guy for me. I think he is a fan. He's a guy who has the legacy going back to George Lucas. He's a creative too, and I think someone in a creative role, I think would give the fans a bit of hope, pun intended. You know what I mean? It's like he has been connected with some very beloved animated series. Ahsoka was, I think, generally received well. And Dee said it, there's been some stuff he's been associated that hasn't done well either. But I do think that I do think he would be the guy. I think you want to give someone. I mean, there's someone who I think would be a great director, and I don't know if to run Star Wars. I'm a big Bryce Dallas Howard fan. Everything she's touched in Star Wars has been great. I think that's someone you give a movie to, but I don't think running the studio or running that part. I think you have to give someone who has the time, who has the legacy. Like Feige was with Fox and was producing, he was on the set of the first X-Men film, and now he's doing it. It makes the most sense.
Yeah. Yeah. My pick would be Favreau too. Only because he's been successful at it.
Yeah.
He's made he's drawn the most attention to the Disney portion of the franchise and told great stories while also trying to stick to the lore. That's
Mando season 3 was a
season 3
hot
was
pile of garbage.
It was hot garbage.
So
I got to can't. So in that same vein, Filoni's has some misses too.
Yeah.
So
I just look at Favreau and I'm just like, there's something about it, like yes and no for me. It's just like I almost feel like he like likes to get in early, and then he's like, all right, I'm gonna cash out and be on the executive producer level, like he did in Marvel.
Yeah.
I mean, he was the first right. Then he's like, I'll take those checks. You know what I mean? And I do love him. I love his first film, Made, was one of my favorites. We quoted, it's my wife's family. We quote it all the time, but just something about him. I'm just like, I don't know. I just don't know. But I mean, I think Filoni would be the guy just because of his ties to George. I think the next person really has to tie into George. I know Kathleen Kennedy worked with him forever, but he sat under the creative learning tree of George, and I think that could benefit him the most. Outside of that, man, I saw some other names. I saw someone's like, well, put Kevin Feige in George, but I'm like,
no,
he's got to run Marvel. No. Do you want the man to die tomorrow? Because no one can handle that stress, man. Come on. No one can handle that.
No. Please don't. I would say, and I'm gonna be fair. I'm gonna be fair to Filoni because I've had very harsh criticisms of him. But
I feel like it's the hat. I think that's what mad. I guess I could see that you getting angry about that.
Yeah. Very much.
As you reside in Texas.
Go somewhere. But
you're like that son of a bitch wearing a cowboy hat. Not from around here.
But yeah, man, it's gonna be interesting to see who they put in there. But I just want them to listen to the fans, because the fans will give you some good ideas.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I do feel that I think Dee is very open-minded. I think there was a lot of people that hated the fact there were women in Star Wars.
Like very much. I
think they got mad about it. They got big mad about it. But people got big mad about the prequels too. Remember, if you ever see
me and him have this debate regularly.
Of course you do.
We have this debate regularly, and his main point is, and he's right, there have been women involved in Star Wars, and they have been iconic. So to his point, yes, there have been successful women in the franchise, and the stories behind the people that they are bringing in now aren't really meshing with today's audience. So they got to figure that part out.
I just don't know. I just don't know if people are so caught up in the lore. I don't know but Andor works so well, right?
Exactly.
It's like, I think you have to have courage. You have to have and I think that's the problem with the Disney of it all. It's just like, you want to make you got to make the most money, and you're just trying
Right.
to and it's a lot of pandering. And so you're like,
Right.
well, we can't get away from the Skywalkers and stuff. It's like, hey, you've proven you can. And I just
With the
think they need,
Mandalorian,
yeah, and Andor.
No, that's bullshit. Because who are they bringing back in the Mandalorian? Luke Skywalker.
yeah, true.
Yeah,
True.
but Andor, and it's not direct. I mean, it's tied into prior
The
to Star
Empire.
Wars. Yeah, but it's
the
not.
Empire.
There's no Jedi in it. Yeah,
It doesn't matter. It's still the Empire. Who's the Empire? It's Darth Vader. Who's Darth Vader? Anakin Skywalker. So you're still feeding you off of. You're still. So here's the thing. I was gonna say this, but my damn video was all fucking frozen.
I know. I saw it. I was just again. It's when you become the demon king.
It's only when you have a point to make, man.
Yeah, exactly. It's bullshit. But you know what I would. Honestly,
they felt the heat. They're like, oh shit, he's got the heat.
It was. You know what? Yeah. It was a Sith.
Listen.
You know what?
Those sons of bitches.
Honestly, this is kind of what I had an idea about too. I would actually like it if Star Wars would kind of change direction. And what I mean by that is you have different projects going on, right? So you have people like myself that like the legacy characters. We like Darth Vader. And all. Okay, we'll do something for them. Then you got people that like the sequels. Do something for them. Then you can still tell your own stories. I think that you got to have something for everybody. You can't just say, okay, well, we're going to push the new characters and say fuck the old ones. You can't do that because obviously that has not worked. If it worked, you would never have named the chick Rey Skywalker. If we were truly going past all of that, you know what I mean? So because Disney's not stupid. Let me tell you a quick story right quick.
They should call it Rey Mysterio.
It would have been better. I mean, would she have gotten over though? That's the thing.
I mean, and would have been better, more over than Star Wars than Skywalker.
I say this: the thing with that too, at the end of Rise of Skywalker, is it should have been a role reversal there. It should have been Kylo Ren, Ben going to the light side. Rey should have went to the dark side. You could have had that kind of, if you want to truly start something new. How do you do it? The only way to do something with Rey, how do you make money with Rey? Rey has to go to the dark side. That's the only way you're going to do anything with her. No one is going to ever, nothing against Daisy Ridley. No one is ever going to identify with this character unless she goes to the dark side. She has to embrace the fact that she's a Palpatine. And that's where they have to go with this. Because she's not going to be an Obi-Wan Kenobi. I heard that stupid story. She's not an Obi-Wan Kenobi. Okay? What have you no. Never going to happen. Okay? But I would like to see Lucasfilm to say, okay, you're in charge of this division, you're in charge of that division, and let's you guys your stories over here, you do your stories, and they don't intertwine. That's why we do it.
I like that because I feel like they're trying to, like you were saying, like I'm like, well, Andor, and then you're like, no, it's still intertwined, and then like, so yeah, if you do separate stuff, I think it could definitely work, and I think that's what you have to. I 100% agree. You have to divorce it.
Brand split, basically Raw, SmackDown, yeah, they kind of intertwine though. But it's kind of the same concept. Lucasfilm, you're in charge of this legacy stuff over here. So you guys do the EU, then we have the new stuff. That's the way it goes. That's what I mean. Because listen, what's the most the most toys that they sell right now? It's the legacy toys. That's what they sell. They're selling Darth Vader. They're selling Luke Skywalker. They're selling Princess Leia. They got a whole new wave of figures coming out right now, and it's all built around A New Hope. They got a brand new Obi-Wan Kenobi Alec Guinness coming out. Oh. So, I mean, yeah. And they got the Revenge of the Sith figures about to come out again. The repackaging. Disney's not stupid. They know what people are buying. All right? It is what it is. And I like Kylo Ren. I got no problem with Kylo Ren. I thought Kylo Ren got sidetracked from what the original vision was. Even Adam Driver will tell you that if you look at the interviews he's in. He'll tell you that what his character ended up doing was not supposed to be what his characters ended up doing. So, I don't know. But hey, the bitch is going to be out soon, so oh well.
And with that's
the legacy of Kathleen Kennedy.